We have another repair of a Model S controller. I rolled the dice on a Facebook group and bought an untested, probably not working controller. This was I think the serial number was an SP31B. When I first got it, I threw it up on the test bench and I didn't have a display hooked up yet. It was still in a machine. Well, I just wanted to see if I could put my test harness on here and start a game, put a speaker on, and then listen to the sounds. So when I first turned it on, I was kind of going blind. But when we power it on, we always get that squabble from our speaker. And then when I went to start a game by hitting my coin switch on my test setup, it would just redo that startup squabble every time, and I could never really start a game. It just kind of seemed like it was rebooting the whole controller. And again, I didn't have a display to see what was going on there, but from the sounds, it just seemed like it was resetting every time. So digging around online, I found a hint that you should check out all of the switch diodes, which there's 14 of them grouped there, then there's a couple more grouped down here too. And D14 on the bottom right was shorted, and that was on the CoinMech1 line, and by replacing that, I was actually able to start a game, and then the rest of the controller worked. So if you have a similar issue where you can't get it to start, just with the power off and your meter on diode check, make sure that none of those little glass switching diodes are shorted. The originals are 1N914As. The replacement that I had on hand was a 1N4148. And then on the schematic, these are available online. These are all the switching diodes that are on our line. So there's CoinMech 1 and 2, knockoff switch, the bonus, the 50-point score, and then the score is the 10 points. There's also one for the ticket notch and then the programming button too. But these, so I had D14 was bad. So it looks like these are tied to some kind of resistor network. This must be some kind of a pull-up resistor on one side, and then the other side is tied to ground. So by replacing that, I got my controller to fire up. Now with this being a 31B, that was on the serial number, there was no tag on my ROM. But the person I bought it from said that he was pretty sure that it came from a display that had the mini bulb set up. So when I attached an LED display to it, it didn't really work all that great. It kind of worked, but it wasn't right. So I found another ROM image from my other controller that I knew worked with LEDs. It was also set up so that the solenoid only engages for the first 5 seconds for that single cradle setup, because the other ROMs that I had on hand were an SP65, and that also works for LED displays, but that SP65 ROM image holds the solenoid open for the entire game. So that must be for machines that can operate just off of a single ball, or if there were machines that had a ball count by the release that would turn it off once 9 balls went by. So for this display, the wiring's a little bit different on these older controllers too. So the mini light displays just had the 6-position connector there that goes orange, red, green, black, brown, and blue. But then the new LED displays have that extra white wire. And my other controller that we did in the other video, which was set up for an LED score display, the 6-position connector actually had 2 more positions on the bottom. I think after the blue it was an empty spot and then the white wire. But to use one of the LED displays on an older controller, I've seen some conflicting information of whether you need this white wire or not. And when I removed this display from a different game, they had it in the big connector on the right, which I think is the 4-player connector on the schematics, and that white wire is in the 6th position. And some people said you needed to connect it there, some people said you didn't. So this is what I found out, is with it connected, it actually works as intended. You'll notice that my display needs a little bit of solder work likely. If I tweak this, I can usually get that to come back. And if I squeeze just right, I can usually get that to come back. So I do need to look into that. But with that extra white wire connected, it seems to be working fine. I'm going to turn it off and show you what it does without that white wire connected. Because some people are saying you don't need it. And it's technically right, but the display doesn't quite work as well. So now that we have that white wire disconnected, you can kind of see that the middle segment's a little twitchy. A lot of our periods are coming on too. And then the middle segment on here are kind of twitchy as well. And when we start a game, it gets a little better. But once we score points, you'll notice that it kind of will twitch out randomly. So without that white wire, you might have kind of a twitchy display. So if we already have it set up, why not just keep it connected? And I saw two different machines that were set up like this, where the extra connector, make sure you plug it in right. The extra connector was in this 4-player display port, and then it was on the 6th position. And then on the schematics, it's on the exact same page that our diodes were shown. But that is our position, our 12 connector, and then in the 6th position, this is a BL4. I'm not exactly sure what BL stands for. It comes off of your I/O chip, though. That would be a clock and a data signal. So I don't know on 4 if this is like a clock or a blanking signal that kind of tells things when to shut off. But with that connected, the LED display works a lot better on these older controllers. So we have the white wire back in, and then our display is behaving as we would expect it to. Also this time, compared to the last video, I have my lights hooked up. So this is the free game. This is the winner, which would also go off the same time and stay on, but it would start to be lit once the beacon goes off, and this is the game over. So if we start a game quick, hit the coin switch, and just hit 10 points, and then hit ball count. And then 20 points, ball count. So we can hit some big ones. We can also just hit the 50 twice to give us 100. We can kind of sneak one in there. So now that winner light will stay lit on the back glass, and then the beacon light would flash at each scoring level. And then I have free game enabled on my dip switches. I think the score is 450. So I'm just going to cheat and get the 450, then we'll hear a special tune, and then that light lights up. And then I just need to end this out. Game over, lights on. This will continue to blink, and then it will automatically start the free game for us. And then with that, we have another working S controller. Those lights across the top are controlled by these tip 31 transistors that are on those large kind of ground plates. There's insulators behind them, but that's a ground plate behind them. So that's the start of our next free game. So hopefully this helps you out.